The 2017 Silver Gavel Award for Radio goes to Radiolab Presents More Perfect WNYC Studios. Accessible and charming, More Perfect cuts through educational and cultural divides. It informs listeners about the United States Supreme Court, how it came to be, and why its decisions so deeply affect our lives. In one highly creative episode, the series relates the dramatic story behind Marbury versus Madison, the 1803 ruling firmly establishing the court's power of judicial review to strike down laws as unconstitutional. While apparently limiting its own authority, the ruling managed to catapult the court into the powerful institution that it is today. How did it do this? In another episode, the series producers explore a reasonably dry 1962 case about legislative apportionment, Baker versus Carr. The case turned out to be so gut-wrenching to decide and yet apparent to American democracy itself that it tragically led one Supreme Court justice to a nervous breakdown. More Perfect incorporates creative use of music and other sound effects, archival audio from historic Supreme Court opinions, and lively and engaging interactions with plaintiffs, activists, and commentators to bring the Supreme Court to life. It represents storytelling at its best, informative, entertaining, and relevant. Let's first listen to a clip from that episode on Marbury. It highlights Chief Justice John Marshall's struggle with his cousin, President Thomas Jefferson, and compares his move to that of a Star Wars Jedi Master. In their interview with the ABA, co-executive producer Susie Lechtenberg and legal editor Ellie Mistal then discuss how and why More Perfect was created and what sets it apart.
But he basically tells Marbury, the plaintiff,
You came in and you came to the Supreme Court first. And you did that because Congress passed a law that said that you could come to the Supreme Court first. But the Constitution says that you can't come to the Supreme Court first.
so I can't help you.
Nope.
It's not your fault, Mr. Marbury.
But that law was unconstitutional.
And we're not going to follow that unconstitutional directive.
So you see what he did there?
Maybe I see. I don't know if I see.
Well, okay, so you know that part in Star Wars,
I was a weak old man.
the first one, where Obi-Wan Kenobi is fighting with Darth Vader, and he says,
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
this is like that, but real. Marshall is agreeing to lose. He's found this way to lose. To let Darth Vader strike him down. And that's actually going to make him more powerful. He's basically saying to his cousin, okay, you don't have to give Marbury his commission. And the reason you don't have to give Marbury his commission is because that law doesn't work. Because we, the court, we get to decide when something agrees with or doesn't agree with the Constitution. So, congrats. You win, cousin.
Oh, and by the way, we, the court, have the power to declare things unconstitutional.
That was the sort of Jedi master move.
That's the move.
Instead of jumping off the cliff or laying down, he jukes to the right.
And he establishes a new rule of the game.
Unconstitutional.
Inside this one highly technical, highly political drama between these two cousins, John Marshall sneaks in an atomic bomb. This incredible power. And in Marshall's decision, he wrote,
It's emphatically the duty and province of the Judicial Department to say what the law is.
Say what the law is.
To say what the law is.
and with those words, he made the court what it is today.
More Perfect came from Jad Abumrad, the host of More Perfect, but also the host of Radiolab. In 2013, he had the idea of having the Radiolab staff take a look at the Supreme Court docket to see if they could find any interesting stories. One of the producers came across a case with an intriguing name, Adoptive Couple v. Baby Girl. It ended up being an award-winning episode. Jad was totally inspired, and he decided to start a whole new show that was completely dedicated to telling stories around the Supreme Court, and that begets More Perfect.
Even though More Perfect is not focused on the current docket, it's certainly inspired by the current docket. When you're talking about a current hot-button Supreme Court case, maybe for the public that case is self-contained, but any lawyer knows that case has a history, has a jurisprudential history, has a precedential history, has a procedural history that goes far and far back. You start looking at the underlying rule, and that really becomes your window into the past and your window into these great stories of how we got to where we are.
I think storytelling is really what sets More Perfect apart from other Supreme Court journalism. We have the luxury of going deep and really doing long-form sort of storytelling. A perfect example of that is the episode about Baker versus Carr, the redistricting case from 1962. Justice Charles Whitaker had a nervous breakdown and had to leave the court. You realize that you can explain to people how redistricting and gerrymandering work, but entirely through the lens of a really personal story. More Perfect is stories about race, class, gender, sex, money, politics, kind of all the stuff that we as Americans fight about, but it happens to take place in the arena of the Supreme Court.
More Perfect is about the branch of government you don't get to vote on, so you should pay attention.
Accepting the silver gavel is Ellie Mistal, legal editor.
Thank you, guys. After the other awards, I feel like I'm the comic relief a little bit, right? Scalia says the darndest things. I want to thank everybody at WNYC. Because we're public radio, I especially want to thank some of our donors, the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, the Charles Evan Hughes Memorial Foundation, and the Joyce Foundation for their leadership and work in funding us. That segues really nicely to how I want to thank everybody who supports public radio in your own town, in your own state, and certainly at the national level right now. It's super important just at the moment. I actually come from a for-profit background, and let me tell you, being able to work with people who don't have to check their Taboola ratings and make sure that things are fire hot on Instagram every second and every day, it's really important. So thank you so much for supporting public radio. And the last thank you I want to do is for the lawyers. Lawyers are the first responders in this day and age. The third branch of government, arguably, is the only branch of government left functioning in this day and age. And so I want to thank every lawyer in the room for everything that you do. It has been an honor for me to just try to explain how the court, how the law works for people, because as I said, I think it's one of the only things left working. So thank you all very much.